I've been investing in startups for quite a while in the blockchain space since 2017.
What are the biggest challenges that you see Web3 today have, especially in this industry?
I understood that the first challenge is actually non-technical, it's the business model. I truly believe that's a decision an entrepreneur needs to make in the beginning. Are they actually trying to build a brand, which is all about storytelling and creating that myth of a brand that audiences aspire to? Or are you creating a scalable technology product? You need a product that works for founders when founders are asleep, and that's the only way you get VC returns. I've met so many great thinkers from the fashion industry that didn't really have the technical capacity to build. They had this amazing vision that commercially was very attractive. But I think for Web3 and more generally for the startup market, the times when investors would throw a lot of money at something that is essentially just a pitch deck presentation and doesn't really have any technology built yet, those times are gone.
What do you see today as the essential elements that are creating a seamless experience with digital in the luxury industry?
Scalability, personalization at scale that translates into individual immersive experience of interacting with the brands, I truly believe is the next frontier of fashion.
Welcome to Beyond Luxury, where we explore emerging trends and take them one step further. Join us as we redefine the meaning of luxury in today's ever-evolving world. Building on the themes of my book, Beyond Luxury, The Promise of Emotion, we invite thought leaders from fashion, beauty, wellness, travel, hospitality, culture, and tech to share their insights and story. Blake, thanks so much for joining us here today at the Apple Podcast Studios in London. I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. We've been talking about this for quite a while, and you are a big super connector, as I really love to call you, advisor and investor at the intersection of technology and luxury, and have been guiding over 40 startups now, with the Farfetch Dream Assembly Basecamp and Outlier Ventures, helping them to really get into the complexities of the world of luxury through Web3 and really getting into that digitalization and how to become relevant and persevere in the future. What is really interesting about you is that you have a knack for spotting trends and things before they actually become mainstream, and I think that's really the key that you have to make these startups go into the right direction. And I would love to know how you first got into the world of digital luxury, Web3, fashion in general, and how you have really shifted your career into this space, becoming one of the big pioneers.
Well, Carlotta, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And it's always a pleasure to see you. And in the past, we've had many non-recorded conversations that we think should have been recorded because you always make great points, and then maybe I can support them a little bit as well. So it's a pleasure to do it on screen. And thank you for the kind intro. To tell you a bit more about that, well, I've been investing in startups for quite a while. In the blockchain space since 2017. So, of course, there are bigger OGs out there, but I left the blockchain space for a while and then came back to the space around COVID because it really made me see that current system of governance are perhaps not focused on the well-being of individuals. And there is this deep philosophy behind Web3 of self-sovereign citizens and essentially an attempt to invent an alternative socioeconomic system. I always like to think that there is a philosophical reason why I get into a given line of work or into working on a given challenge. And essentially, I've been with Outlier Ventures since 2020. And that's where I ran my first program with Protocol Labs, which was Falcon Basecamp. Still in contact with a lot of amazing founders from that program. Is it okay that I maybe mention briefly about the format of the program, how we run it at Outlier Ventures?
Absolutely.
So Outlier Ventures, we are the biggest accelerator and the biggest investor by the volume of deals when it comes to Web3 space. And the model in which we do that is called the Basecamp program. A Basecamp is 12 weeks, 3 months, fully remote, fully virtual acceleration program, usually focusing on a cohort from 6 to 10 startups, essentially giving them support or on all aspects of what it means to be a Web3 startup, as well as support from the partner that works with us on a given program, and then essentially making them ready for other investors, as well as potential token generation event, if that's in line with the business model of the startup. What attracted me into digital luxury and led to me having the honor and the pleasure to lead the Dream Assembly Basecamp under the strategic direction of Farfetch, is that this was a philosophical question to me. So back in the day, NFTs were on the rise and people started talking about digital luxury. And people used it as an established term. But to me, the riddle was obvious. So if you cannot touch it and there is no materials typically associated with luxury, what is digital luxury? And while a lot of people were focused on speculating on profile pics of apes, I saw one implication of the NFT technology, which maybe is not as catchy as all those fast movements in the profile picture market, but I came to realize that NFT enables for the creation of digital scarcity. And to me, it was a clear implication. If you can have scarcity, then you can have luxury, because it's one of the founding principles. And I just wanted to deep dive into that question, knowing that it's such a fresh angle. I also had some experience in fashion previously. And I felt that by diving into this intersection of technology and fashion, it was a really good feeling to learn that in this space, being the most authentic version of Blake actually gives me a bit of an advantage. So to fashion people, I'm the technology person. To technology people, I'm the fashion person. But I kind of live in between those two worlds.
I relate to that.
I can imagine.
I relate to that. And I love what you just said about how and why you got into this, because I don't think I've heard such a profound reason and purpose as to why. So thank you for sharing that to us and with us. And I think that with everything that you've just mentioned, there's a big challenge and big question, which is the interplay of these two things, right? Of digital fashion, physical fashion. How do they come together? And how do brands surpass this? And how are startups helping those brands surpass it, right? What is your opinion on a true interconnected digital fashion ecosystem?
So I've been pushing this concept or this term that I call the reality spectrum. And I've noticed that in terms of narrative, we are still talking about digital objects and physical objects. Back in the day, when metaverse as a term was all the rage, the mainstream audience also associated it with virtual reality. And I have to say, I was always more excited about the combination of the physical reality and different digital contexts that all link together into one seamless environment. So rather than dividing things into physical and digital, I always encourage people to think about it as one continuum that starts with a physical object and then moves through augmented reality, mixed reality, virtual commerce, gaming, all the way to traditional websites. And I have this vision, not only me, but a lot of people working in the space. I believe we're working towards this vision of one interconnected system where digital fashion assets, much like traditional fashion, are not locked within one given platform, but actually are inherently connected to their user. And you could travel with those assets across different digital contexts, be it a popular multiplayer online game, or a filter on Instagram. And I truly believe by shifting, there is an ongoing shift of power towards the users. Everybody competes for users, but their presence is still somewhat fragmented. Same goes for the brand presence in digital environments. And I truly believe there is a huge opportunity into pulling it all together into one coherent spectrum.
I love that. And how do you think that blockchain now has the ability to lead this journey into this continuum in a way that you are still owning the item and still knowing everything about the item? And how is it also helping, on the other way around, the actual user understand how to use their either item or whatever that asset is, whether it be physical or digital, and how they can actually express themselves and express their identity, whether it be in a digital space or in a physical space?
So I think we're gonna circle back to authentication and verification of provenance because that's a whole big topic in and of itself. But there is so many functions that blockchain can play in fashion. Fashion has always been about self-expression. But one thing that is important to understand is that true adoption is where you have Web3 components in the backend, and it's not really the main actor in your play. I always use this example. I'll bring up my phone and I would say, Carlota, check out this amazing website. I'm not going to tell you, check out this amazing HTTP website. It's kind of implied that it's there and it's not something that takes center stage.
Right.
So I believe the real adoption happens if you, for example, own an NFT, but you have no idea there is an NFT in the backend. And I think that's important to remember. For me, the implication of blockchain technology on the fashion industry extend to such use cases as engagement and loyalty. It's about keeping an open line between a brand and their most active customers, as well as rewarding them for that loyalty and making sure that it's truly your top supporters that get rewarded, making sure that you have access to your community and that you understand the data insights that flow from that community. Ideally, that you own the data rather than a social media platform when you interact with your community. Because that's essentially pay to engage, which is not the way to go. So I also believe on the front end, community tooling is a huge opportunity, and reinventing how brands interact with their audiences, as well as immersive experience technology. So apart from verification of provenance, there is also the aspect of brand IP protection. Intellectual property is the most valuable asset that the luxury brand has. So it's a non-trivial problem. How do we protect that and give them a sense of control? And finally, I truly believe blockchain has a key role to play in digital fashion interoperability and creating that luxury product scarcity, essentially making sure that it's not many copies of digital fashion assets just flowing around, but you keep track of what's where and make sure that the defining qualities of a luxury product are maintained.
Stop everything you're doing. If you love our podcast and are passionate about the future of luxury, don't forget to hit follow. The more followers we have, the bigger guests we can bring on. Without you, we couldn't do what we do. So thank you. Absolutely. I can't agree more with everything you just said. There's two types of big utilities in blockchain. Can you go through the difference between physical items on chain and having the physical item and then moving it into a chain process, and vice versa on the other side, looking at digital items that are already on chain and how they can lead out with also physical products and kind of this circular lifespan that the item can have one way and the other?
All right, that's a great question. And in many ways, especially now in Europe with the digital product passport regulation, I believe every physical product would have some sort of a digital representation that corresponds to its singular unit kind of nature. And I truly believe the only way forward to reinvent the luxury sector is making sure both physical products and digital products are tracked and traced. But to me, the biggest implication is maybe not just the verification of provenance. The biggest implication that maybe I haven't really appreciated in the beginning when I learned about it is royalties. and the ability to reward the brand or the consumer based on different interactions that are traced digitally that can be linked to a physical object. To me, that has huge implications for sustainability of the industry. So we know, I think it's common knowledge that fashion has a pollution problem. But I believe that problem is a symptom of deeper alignment of incentives that we have in the industry. At the root of luxury, it used to be about products that can last for generations, are made from extremely durable materials, very high quality materials. But nowadays, in a kind of modern capitalist environment, it's pretty much about the number of products sold. But if we introduce royalties assigned to every object, it changes a very common situation. So let's say I have a Louis Vuitton bag. And I decided to sell it to you in the secondary market. When you purchase that bag from me, first of all, you might think, oh, okay, well, Blake is a bit of a fishy guy. Like, how can I make sure this is an authentic bag? So now with NFC technology, we can do that. But the problem was when that transaction happened, Louis Vuitton hasn't seen a single cent from that transaction. Not only that, their data trail goes cold with me. Even though you're clearly in the market for their assets,
Absolutely. Yep.
they have no idea you exist in that specific context. So in the industry, we often talk about the customer lifetime value. And I believe royalties enable us to shift that paradigm into product lifetime value. And if you run the math, if done correctly, I truly believe by creating a durable product and also engaging in circular economy models, maybe fixing and offering repairs of a product, and actually encouraging people to pass on the luxury product across generations, across the secondary market, and creating a revenue stream for the brand from the royalties, essentially can reinvent the luxury sector in a way that goes back to the foundations of luxury. Durable products that last for generations, but every time they're being passed on, the brand benefits. And suddenly, rather than focusing on multiplying the number of products they sold, they can focus on making it a sustainable, durable product that lasts for a generation with the same financial result.
Bam. That's so good. Authenticity, provenance, secondary market, having repair and really buybacks of even brands, right? Reselling, allowing for new business models and sustainable business models to come out of this is all so ingrained in what blockchain brings to luxury, and you couldn't have said it better, honestly. And the world of royalties just changes everything, right? And it changes how we think of business models as we know it today for brands and for consumers. So it's a super, for me, I think one of the most exciting things about blockchain in this world. Let's talk about Web3 as a bigger topic now. And I would love to see you look at all these startups every day and you're talking about, all the problems that they see. What are the biggest challenges that you see Web3 today have, especially in this industry?
Mm-hmm. So, of course, these are my personal opinions and not opinions of Outlier Ventures.
Absolutely.
But especially in this industry, and having worked with many digital fashion, digital luxury startups, when this subsegment of the industry was still very fresh, it was also a steep learning curve for me. I understood that the first challenge is actually non-technical. It's the business model. When the space first started moving, there was a bit of a confusion between a fashion brand and a technology startup. And you would have fashion brands approach technology investors and vice versa. And I truly believe that's a decision an entrepreneur needs to make in the beginning. Are they actually trying to build a brand, which is all about storytelling and creating that myth of a brand that audiences aspire to? Mm-hmm. Or are you creating a scalable technology product? If you're just designing digital assets or digital fashion, that can be an amazing business in and of itself, but it might not be a venture capital investable business because there is only so many hours in the day you could design it. So there is an inherent limit to scalability of this venture. And VCs know that when making an investment, you have to account for the fact that you need to have a prospect for a return large enough to pay off all the investments that maybe didn't work out. If it's a services-based business model, that scalability is just not there. You need a product that works for founders when founders are asleep. And that's the only way you get VC returns. But that was also confusing to investors in the beginning. And some of us made investments in essentially what used to be what seemed like a technology company, but was essentially a fashion brand, which is great. But the time to exit is significantly longer. And also there are different ways to exit that business for an investor than they would with a technology startup. Another one was related to the technical product. It's essentially the technology aspect. I've met so many great thinkers from the fashion industry that didn't really have the technical capacity to build. And they had this amazing vision that commercially was very attractive. But I think for Web3 and more generally for the startup market, the times when investors would throw a lot of money at something that is essentially just a pitch deck presentation and doesn't really have any technology built yet, those times are gone. Investors are much more focused on strong fundamentals nowadays than any prospective gains that might come with hype cycles. The next challenge that I also learned the hard way is around sales and really trying to answer the question, who are you selling to? Who is your customer? I found that very often those technology companies, and again, amazing founders, amazing builders, they're very eager to get a luxury group logo on their deck as one of the early adopters. But it's also a mistake that I made early on, not understanding that these are not technology companies. So it's great if you have a proof of concept with Chanel, but what are the next steps?
Right.
And perhaps the brand is, of course, a participant of this equation because they bring the valuable IP to the table and very much your stakeholder. But perhaps it's the technology platform when the interaction with the customer happens that is your customer. And you should be talking to them rather than get distracted with flashy logos that I'm sure look great on the deck. But in the long run, when it comes to sustainable go-to-market and achieving that commercial scale, you really need to understand that you're talking to the people that can take it to the next level.
Very, very interesting. Stay tuned to hear some fashion tips from my brilliant stylist, Paulina Arenas. Paulina, I'm so excited to have you here with me and to also talk about a little bit about your journey in your path to being a stylist, which actually didn't really start by you knowing that you wanted to be a stylist. Can you tell me a little bit about the beginning, how it all started? You're obviously in the fashion industry from a long time ago, but how did this path into styling not only personal individuals, but also big campaigns start?
Well, everything, as you said, I never woke up and was like, oh my God, I'm going to be a stylist. I feel like for sure when I moved to Paris, living there after coming from Guatemala, where I was born and raised, I feel like Paris, the architecture, the art, the people, everyone really inspired me in having I guess, a more sophisticated wardrobe. And that's how I started to dress myself up more. And with that, a lot of people would ask me like, oh my God, a friend of mine would go somewhere and they would always be like, can you please help me dress myself? And that was with my sister, with friends, with people that I didn't really know. Then it started with my DM. Like I would get people like you who would text me like, oh, can you style me? What are you doing? Do you do this? And I was like, do I do this? I don't really know if I do this, but I guess I love to do it. So yeah. And that's how I started with it.
I think the funnest thing about the way that you go about this is that a lot of times it's so natural to you that it doesn't feel like it's work. And I think that's the goal of every single human being on this earth, is how can I get to do what I love doing? And that's exactly what you're doing. And it's so easy to feel that and to have that as a palpable kind of energy that you give off. And the reason why I asked you to be my stylist in the beginning was because it wasn't only about the way you dressed and the way that you styled yourself, but also that energy that you exuded when you did so. And it was so clear that you were just so confident in your own skin. And I wanted that in every phase of my life, right? Which normally I would save that for, like, I'm going to speak at this event, I'm going to do this. And so I'm going to do that kind of curation and that intention around that one outfit. But you've really taught me to do that even on, like, when you're going to your workout class, what are you wearing then, right? Because even that, it is like a strut through wherever you're going, and you want to feel that in any kind of, you can exude that and really express your identity in every part of your life in that way.
Yeah, I feel like definitely what you said about, like, what are you going to wear for your workout? I do feel like it inspires you to go, like, feeling comfortable, feeling pretty, looking at yourself in the mirror before leaving. Like, it's not just about, like, what you're wearing again. It's really how you're feeling, how you're walking with it. Like, it's all a ritual of, like, self-love, where I feel like with fashion, we always tend to think about it as a very superficial thing, and that has always been my struggle when thinking about fashion, because I really love it, but I also am a very spiritual person, so it was really like it was always like a fight between myself. And now I realize that as I've been doing this, it's really all connected, and that's the beautiful thing about it, that you can really put intention, set intention from who you buy the pieces to, how you invest your money, like why you do it also. Why are you buying that? Is it because you think that it's going to make you look cool, or because you really think it's cool and it makes you feel beautiful and you wear those shoes and you walk like, Beyonce? Like, I feel like it has to really connect with yourself to be able to give that energy that you say I give out.
I love it. How can people look at what you are doing, connect with you if they're interested in being, just feeling, more than being, it's feeling the best selves? And if they want to also do styling for campaigns, that is something that you do a lot as well. How can they connect to you? How can they reach out to you? And how can they learn more?
Well, they can learn more through my Instagram right now, DM for sure. I'm trying to post as much as I can. It's also something hard for me to do, but I'm getting better. So there's a lot of inspo there. And then soon you'll have a website, but for now, Pulgarenas, go through my Instagram and DM me if you want to work with me.
Fantastic. Thank you.
That wraps up part 1 of this episode. The conversation doesn't stop here. Make sure to dive into part 2 for more insights, stories, and perspectives you won't want to miss.
For weekly updates on future trends and the latest insights and data on the luxury industry, be sure to follow us on the Beyond Luxury's weekly Substack. Discover our bespoke trend reports and come to us for luxury futures consulting at Beyond Luxury Group.